December 25th, 1991 was one of the most significant days in recent history. On that day, the Soviet flag flew over the Kremlin in Moscow for the last time before it was taken down and replaced by the Russian flag. Finally, on December 31, 1991, the existence of one of the greatest states of all time came to an end. Moreover, the event is also considered the end of the Cold War. But why did this once powerful country, which for decades was leading world power alongside the USA, break up? First, look at its origins. After the Russian Tsar was overthrown during the Russian Revolution in 1917, the Bolsheviks established what became known as the Russian Soviet Republic. By 1922, all other former Russian territories were incorporated and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, or Soviet Union, was proclaimed. This state was eventually able to rise to world power status after its victory in World War II, and in the following decades competed with the United States for the title of the most powerful country on Earth. At 22.4 million square kilometers, the Soviet Union was by far the largest country in the world and accounted for almost 1/6 of the total land surface of the Earth. It had a total population of more than 290 million, which was more than the population of the United States, and there were more than 100 different nationalities, which is why the Soviet Union can be called a true multi-ethnic state. Over the decades, however, more and more difficulties crystallized, which is why the Soviet Union was confronted with a multitude of unsolved problems in the 1980s. Economically, in particular, the country was clearly lagging behind the Western states. The huge administrative apparatus and the gigantic defense expenditure swallowed up vast sums of government spending. It is estimated the Soviet military spending alone swallowed up between 10 and 20% of GDP. By comparison, Germany today does not even reach the 2% target. Although it was officially still the world's second largest economic power, a large part of the population still lacked simple consumer goods. In addition, the country missed important future trends and continued to be extremely dependent on oil. The price of oil did not experience good times in the 1980s, falling from $120 per barrel to $24 per barrel from 1980 to 1986 alone. This drastically reduced the state's most important source of revenue. In addition, the political apparatus increasingly ossified and most politicians were only concerned with securing their own power base and not with the problems of the ordinary population. Two further events exacerbated the already existing problems. On the one hand, the invasion of Afghanistan, which was extremely costly and resulted in heavy losses, and on the other hand, the nuclear disaster at Chernobyl. So it was in these difficult times that Mikhail Gorbachev took over the leadership of the USSR in 1985 and strove to completely turn the country around both economically and politically. Especially the two words Glasnost and Perestroika represent the central points of his policy. Glasnost means transparency and was supposed to lead to freedom of expression and a free press. Perestroika means restructuring, though which Gorbachev attempted to comprehensively modernize the socialist economy and society. Instead of revolutionizing the communist economy and society, however, the reforms accelerated the decline of the entire system. Through Glasnost, the leadership lost control of public opinion and democratic reform movements erupted throughout Eastern Europe. Perestroika and overly hasty economic changes were now making basic foodstuffs even more expensive, and the state was already approaching financial collapse by 1989. Through all these problems, revolutions finally broke out in several Eastern Bloc countries starting in 1989. There had been revolutions in previous decades, but this time the Soviet leadership did not intervene militarily. Gorbachev wanted to move closer to the West and therefore also reduced the military presence in the states of Eastern Europe. The first revolution of 1989 took place in Poland, leading to free elections in the country. The Berlin fell in November, and shortly thereafter the communist government in Czechoslovakia was overthrown. These independence efforts increased the pressure on the Soviet leadership, and it was only a matter of time before the spark of revolution would spread to the Soviet Union. The first countries to declare independence in early 1990 were the three Baltic states of Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, followed by Georgia and Armenia, and in the following months more and more states left the Soviet Union. Although President Gorbachev did everything possible to keep the country together somehow, he was deposed by his own Communist Party and placed under house arrest. Although Gorbachev returned briefly, Boris Yeltsin eventually took over as the first democratically elected president. But he, too, realized that the Soviet Union could no longer be saved and met with the other Soviet republics in December 1991 to establish the borders of the newly independent states and the official dissolution of the Soviet Union. Thus, the dissolution of the USSR was largely peaceful and Russia was established as the successor state to the Soviet Union. Hey, I hope you learned something in this video. Consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.